Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I haven't posted anything in a while because I've been busy being a mom and it's really hard to sit down and edit a video, so I want to get that started again. I wanted to talk about my experience having a home birth, and I'm sure a lot of you know, and if you don't know, Indigo, my daughter, was born at home here in our living room, and she was actually born in water, so that was pretty cool. A lot of people, when I told them about it, thought, you're crazy, you're gonna do that at your house? What if something goes wrong? What if you die? What if something happens? But I can assure you that it's so safe. It's really super safe, especially if you're healthy and you're actually, I think, really healthy. So just a little disclaimer before I start talking about this. I am not in any way telling you to do this, and I'm not in any way saying that a hospital birth is bad or anything like that. This is just my experience and what I did and what I felt was right for me and for my family. So what I did at first was I went and Sal is my husband, we went and we interviewed a midwife. Her name is Tania, and we ended up just falling in love with her right from the start. So we knew that that was going to be who we wanted to go with and who we wanted to deliver our baby. And the whole process from the beginning to Indigo being born was probably the easiest and best process I think that we could have gone through. So I think that the whole experience of going throughout the pregnancy with our midwife, that's like a whole nother video because I can talk about that for hours. So today I just really wanted to talk about the actual birth. I don't have video of the birth. I have some photos that I'll include here, and that way you can see and get an idea of what it was like. It was beautiful, but I'll just talk about my birth experience. So I have some notes. Even though it's so crazy, I remember everything, basically. I was in a trance, it seemed like the whole time, but I do remember what was going on and I could hear what was going on. But I wrote some notes, that way I'm not stumbling. So on the day of October 27th, yeah, it was October 27th of 2016, I remember that day I was having some low back pain and I was getting some really sharp stabbing. Okay, I was getting some really sharp stabbing pains in my vagina. Oh my gosh, really sharp. Oh, that is Indigo waking up. And after I was having all of those pains, I went to the store with my mom and we were walking around and stuff, and I was telling her oh my gosh, my back hurts, I'm getting some pains. Oh man, I just wish this would be over already. And she was like, I bet it's getting close, because when you start having those kinds of pains, that's when you know labor is imminent. So then that night, I remember I cried because I was like, oh, I just don't know how much longer I can take this. Oh my gosh. And mind you, Indigo's due date was November 1st, so I was still a few days early. But I remember at 10:30, well, let me back up. Tania, our midwife, told us, and she gave us a list of things to do to prepare our house. So one of the things was to put a plastic sheet on our bed, and then make your bed with your sheets and everything, and then put a plastic sheet and then another sheet on top, so that way if your water broke, then you were good to go. You wouldn't mess up your bed or your mattress. So that's what we did a few days prior. And so good thing, because that night I was laying down in bed, it was 10:30, and my water broke. And I was not expecting what that would feel like. It felt so warm, and I peed myself. And Sal was out here in the living room, and I was like, Sal, I think my water broke. Obviously my water broke and I wasn't peeing my pants, but what I wasn't prepared for was that it would just keep coming out. And I remember once it broke, my whole body was whoa, oh my gosh. I was so nervous, but we were excited, but we were really nervous about what was to happen. And right away I called Tania and I was like, Tania, my water broke. Sorry to call you so late, but she was expecting that. But sorry to call you so late, my water broke, oh my gosh. And she asked me some questions, and she's like, okay, how are you feeling? Are you having any contractions? Is there any pain, anything? And I wasn't having any contractions yet. So she was like, okay, try to sleep, go to sleep, rest, because this is it. This is gonna get going. This is it, so try to rest now while you can. So I called my mom and I was like, hey mom, my water broke. I called Tania. She told me to try to sleep until things start rolling. And so I did, but I couldn't sleep. I was like too excited, too nervous, and waiting for the pain to start. And so then my mom came over like at 11:30 or 12 that night because she wanted to be here. And so she was here. She said, I'll be out here. And we started a fire because it was chilly. So she was like, I'll be here and you try to get some sleep. And then Sal, he was trying to get some sleep as well. But I don't think we really slept that much. I started to get some pain and it was okay. It was really tolerable. I was able to be up because I finally just got out of bed like at 1 and I was like, I can't sleep. So I got up and we started preparing the pool. Like we blew it up and started just, you know, making sure everything was where it should be. And about 3 a.m. my contractions started getting a little more serious, but still tolerable. I was able to talk. I was able to walk around and do things, and it was helping me to stay busy and try to like clean up a bit and make food and do all kinds of things to try to just keep my mind off of it. And then at like 3 a.m. that's when they started like kicking into gear. And we called Tania, and I because it's my first time. I didn't really know what to expect. So we called Tania, and she came over at about 4:30 in the morning, and she hung out and she asked some questions and just made sure that we were comfortable. And she set up pillows on my bed in a way that I could sit up and relax and just kind of like, you know, relax and let the pain come and everything. We had our exercise ball out and all that. I snacked, and just to kind of keep my energy up because I had been awake all day, the whole day before, so rest wasn't really on my side. But I snacked, and the contractions were still bearable at about 6 o'clock. So 6 a.m., about 6 or 7 a.m., the other two midwives came, Robin and Kayleen. Kayleen is a student midwife, but she's a doula as well. So she was here, and they came, and I was still able to talk, walk around. They would come, and they were coming probably, I'd say maybe like 6, 7, 8 minutes apart at that point. But when they came, I was still able to talk through it. I would just like walk around the house and breathe through it and talk, and I was okay. Because I knew that once they started coming more frequently and they would be on top of each other, that I wouldn't even be able to speak. And that's how you know that you're like in active labor. And so what we did during that time was we used some oils like on my wrists. I can't remember exactly what oils we used, but just to help relax and be calm and all of that, which I feel I was doing a pretty good job of. The whole time Sal was hanging around, and he was being a really good coach, and he was like playing music from his computer and just like trying to like keep the mood light. It was probably, I think maybe it was about 12 p.m. So this is October 28th now. We're into the next day, October 28th. No sleep, nothing. Just really riding that labor wave and really like preparing, trying to get my mind prepared. It was probably about, I'd say maybe 11 or 12. So 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. on the 28th, which was a Friday. The midwife said, hey, you know, we're probably going to get going, and we're going to go have lunch, and we're going to hang around close by, so call us if you need us, because you still have a ways to go. They did check me, and I was only dilated to a 1 after all that time. And at that point, my contractions were getting a lot more painful. I don't want to say worse, because that's really the wrong word to use, but they were getting more painful. And I thought, oh, for sure, like she's going to come out any minute. Like there's no way this could get any more painful than it already is. But they said, no, you're still talking. You're still actually doing great. So you have a long way to go. And I was only at a 1. And I didn't want to be checked. And they didn't want to check me any more than that, just because the risk of infection goes up, especially because my water had already broken that like more than 12 hours ago. So they left, and my dad came by like right as they were leaving. And that's what's so great too about like doing a home birth, in my opinion, is I'm not at a hospital. So I'm not confined to a bed. So I was able to be outside and I was able to be in the kitchen and just hanging around. So my dad came by and he hung out for a bit. He didn't know what to expect. So he walks in and there's a pool in the living room. The water wasn't in it yet, but there's a pool in the living room. There's like big boxes everywhere of supplies and everything. And Tania had her big bag here that had so much stuff in it. So it had like emergency supplies and any, you know, things that could arise, she was prepared for. So they left. And before she left, she said, hey, you know, why don't you try taking some Benadryl so you can relax? Maybe it'll help you relax. I never take medicine. My whole pregnancy, I didn't take any medicine of any sort, even if I was sick. So taking Benadryl was like a huge, like, ugh. But I took only half of a pill, and it made me very sleepy, but I still couldn't relax because right after they left, because one thing that Tania said was that if your water broke a long time ago, and they say once it's been broken for 24 hours and you haven't had your baby yet, then chances are you're going to risk infection for myself and for Indigo. So we might have to think about transferring to a hospital. So I didn't want that at all. And luckily though, that didn't happen. Once they left, I'd say at about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, my contractions just boom. They hit like nothing else I could ever imagine. They came, they were just right on top of each other. So, let's see. Yeah, they were really intense by 3 p.m. So what we were doing was walking around the house. Like if one came, Sal would be right here with me, and we were kind of like, he would rock back and forth with me because I was trying to keep my body moving and my hips moving, because I couldn't stand still. And that's one thing, like when you're in the hospital and you have to lay in bed through the contractions, like I can't even imagine that, because I couldn't sit still or stand still when it was going on. But I had my eyes closed, because if I opened them and I focused on anything other than myself and inside in my mind, that was it. I was on the brink of crying probably from 3 p.m. all the way until like 7 p.m. Because it's painful. But what's great is that when you don't have any interventions, your body knows how to handle pain, especially labor pain, because your body is built to do it. And yeah, my body kind of put me in a trance. So I knew what was going on. I can hear everything. I could respond, but I was so focused that the pain probably was more tolerable because my body was able to do its own thing for pain, you know. But I remember I would be sitting, we had an exercise ball, and I'd be sitting on the exercise ball, and Sal was sitting next to me, and my mom was still here. And my mom would ask me a question. I would be like, yes, or I don't know. Like, because I could not use my voice, because if I did, it would break my concentration. And Sal would have to constantly remind me, hey, breathe, breathe, and he would start his breathing, and I would copy him, and he would keep me on that breathing because it helped me stay relaxed. Because if I didn't, then I could feel myself like building up to where I would lose it, and I would just like start crying and freaking out. But at the same time, I knew that I could do it, so I felt really strong. I felt really empowered. They always say, like my mom says and Sal says, I look like a zombie, like going through the house, because Sal would be walking with me and I couldn't see. I had my eyes closed. So he would be guiding me down the hall, back around the living room, and I would just be like walking like, ugh. I didn't make any noise. I remember I didn't say a word, especially when they were coming. My contractions were coming. I didn't say anything. I just went through it. Like I felt the pain. I absorbed the pain. And then I would get that reprieve after they were done. But it's intense for sure. I remember Tania came back. Tania, Kayleen, and Robin came back probably about 4 o'clock, maybe. Yeah, I'd say probably about 4 o'clock. And she set me up on our bed. So she set up the pillows to where I could sit up, and she put them behind me to where I could lean my head back and sleep. And the contractions were pretty much on top of each other. So one would come, and it would be like super intense, and it would be there, and I'd be like, whoo, whoo, whoo. And then as soon as soon as I would feel it tapering off, so let's just say like it's tapering off, that I can feel the next one coming right on top of it. So there was no break. But in that little brief moment that I could feel there's a little reprieve, I would fall asleep. Like instantly I'd fall asleep for not even a minute. I would just be like, I'd fall asleep, and then it would pull me back out of my sleep as it would come on strong. And while that was going on, Sal was right next to me, and he was helping me breathe, talking to me, making sure I was okay. And then he went and got some candles and he lit them around the room. And I remember I could see him. I would open my eyes a little bit and I could see him lighting the candles, and it was really beautiful. The candlelight in the dark was so beautiful, and just the warm feeling that it created, that warmth was like nothing else, you know. It was great. And I knew I'm in my own bed right now, and in a few hours I'm gonna have a baby here. So that's what kept me going, definitely, was just knowing like how lucky I am that I'm able to do this at home. While everything was going on, what I thought was really great was they all just hung back. They weren't on top of me saying, hey, are you okay? What do you feel? What's going on? They let me do my own thing, and they were hanging out in the living room, in the kitchen. They were snacking, talking, having a good time, hanging out, making sure I was okay, but from afar. So it was all on me, and they let me progress naturally. So my body did exactly what it needed to do, exactly when it needed to do it, and that was just like amazing. It was so amazing. And they were out here knitting, so Tania knitted Indigo a little pumpkin hat because it was like 2 days before Halloween or 3 days before Halloween, and that's what they were doing. And she would come in periodically when I was in the room, and she would sit down with me, talk to me, and ask me how I was doing, how I was feeling. But that was so few and far between, because they knew that they trusted my body, and I trusted my body to do what it needed to do. That was cool. It was about 5:30 p.m. Tania came in, and she's like, hey, so what do you think about getting into the pool? And that's what's amazing, is I don't know how she knew that it was time. I really don't. But I guess she's been doing this for a long time, but I feel like it's her intuition. Her intuition knew like it's getting close. So she came in and she helped me off the bed, and we walked out into the living room, and the pool was full of water. And what they did was they hooked up, what is this? Oh, it's my clothes. They hooked up a hose. We had an RV hose that we had to get, and we hooked it up to the shower and brought it out into the living room and put it in the pool, and we filled it up with water. Or they did, not me. And I remember I stood in the living room, I undressed completely, and they helped me get into the pool. And the whole time I'm thinking, I'm not gonna be able to lift my leg up. Are you kidding? I can't lift my leg to get into the pool, because the pool came up probably to like my hips. My hips? Yeah, probably my hips. And I did though, I made it. They helped me in. And you probably think like, what, you undressed like in front of them, and you were naked, but really at that point you are so focused on yourself and just maintaining your concentration that you don't really think of that. I mean, I did, and for a second I was like, oh my God, they are seeing way more than I want anybody to ever see. But at the same time, like I trusted them. So I got in the water, and the water was so warm, and it felt so good. Like I instantly felt my back and like my pelvis area relax. Like it just like, it was so relaxing. I still remember it. It's like getting into a hot tub, and it felt so good. And I just got in the water, and I let my body kind of like float there for a while, and it felt really good. And then my contractions started coming, and I started feeling the urge to push. So that was probably about 6 o'clock, and it was just very minor in the beginning, the urge to push. Like I would feel the contraction come, and my body just did it on its own. I had no control over it, which was pretty cool. Like my body did it by itself. So when a contraction would come, I would feel all down the center of my body this urge to just like push, and my body did it on its own. Like even now when I think about it, it's so amazing. I didn't have to do anything. I mean, of course I was, but I just listened to my body and let it guide me, and it did it by itself. It was pretty neat. While I was in the pool, Tania would come over, and she would give me a spoonful of honey, and that would help with my energy, keeping my energy up, because you're not really thinking about eating at a time like that. Like, you don't want food. But she would give me some honey, and Kayleen and Robin would be putting like cool rags on my head just to help keep me cool, calm, and collected. And Sal was in the pool with me too. Now, something, and I will share everything. So something that Sal still talks about to this day is in our birth kit that you get a little net, like a fishing net. And for all of you ladies out there who say like, oh my God, I would be so terrified if I pooped during labor, all these people would see. Well, let me tell you, like, it's gonna happen for sure. Like, you just can't help it, because it's the same exact muscles that you're using to push that you use to poop, okay? So just get over that fear right now, because it's going to happen. And I think that it's even worse because I was in the pool with my husband in the water, and I was pushing because it would just come, I'd push, and there it was. And so he was using the net and he was fishing it out and like throwing it in a trash bag, I think. And he still thinks about it. And Sal can sometimes be a little bit of a germaphobe. So for him to be doing that, that's love. For sure, that's love. But back to the contractions and pushing, I remember how relieving it felt when I would push. So the contraction would come and my body would start pushing, and it just felt like such a relief. Like, oh man, yes, this is exactly what needs to be happening right now, as I need to be pushing. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, it was such an experience doing that. But I think I pushed probably for maybe 2 hours or so, but not constantly, of course. There would be, between pushes, there was no pain. So the contractions actually let up. So once it was time for me to start pushing, the contractions were spaced out a lot. So I was just like totally relaxing in the pool, and would just be like, feel the water like letting me float around and stuff. And then I would feel it coming. Like, it was like with my eyes closed, it was like I could see off in the distance, like, let's just say like outside in the distance, I could see that contraction and I could see it coming towards me. And then there it was. And then I would push, and I would push and push and push, and then relax, and there was no pain. So I was able to just probably, I think, even fall asleep for a few minutes until the next one came. And that was nice to kind of rest. And then at about probably 9 o'clock or so, I remember I would start pushing, maybe 8:45-ish. I was pushing more intensely. I had that primal growl that would come out, and I feel like that's just my body's like instinctual way of like getting my, it's okay, I'll stop it. I had that primal growl that would come out with the pushes, and it was like, well, I probably can't even recreate it because my body was doing it just like on its own. I think that that's its instinctual way of like giving you all this power to push out a human. So, hi, Indigo's over there. Hi. And so I remember probably about 8:45 or so, or yeah, probably about 8:45, I pushed, and I knew that her head was there. I knew it. And Tania was like, there's her head. I could see it. And so my mom came over around to see, and she was like, that's her head. Look. And so Tania got a mirror and she showed me so I can see it. And then I pushed a little bit more. And once her head came out, probably just a little bit further, then she told me to stop and hold it there. Just feel it, hold it. You want your body to stretch naturally. So I let her stay there, and let me tell you, that ring of fire is real. It's real. It feels like fire. But at the same time, it's a gratifying feeling because you know that what's causing that pain is your baby's head being right there. So I just held it there, and I remember I was just like, okay, I got it, breathing through the pain. And then she said, okay, on the next contraction, push. So I did, and then her whole head came out, and she showed me in the mirror, and her head just kind of like hung out, and she felt to make sure her cord wasn't around her neck, which it wasn't. Everything was fine there. And then the next push, probably the next push or 2 pushes, I pushed her all the way out. And Sal always says that he'll never forget her coming out, and she looked like a little dolphin, like coming out into the water. And then she said, okay, grab your baby. And so I put my hands down there and she handed her to me and I brought her to my chest. And at that moment, I felt like I could do anything. All that pain, all that tiredness, all of that, everything that was going on, I felt like I'm awake. Here I am. I can do anything. I felt like I could get up out of that pool and, you know, go to the bathroom, make some food, and I felt myself. Like, I've never felt so much myself than in that moment. I felt amazing holding my baby right there, and Sal was right behind me. I should mention that Sal was in the pool with me, and he was behind me, and I was leaning back against him, and he was just helping me and being my literal support. I couldn't have done it without him for sure. And Sal said to her, he went, because he would always, when she was in my stomach, he would always go, Indigo, and he said it to her, and she, boom, popped up her head, and she was looking for him. So that was like, we'll never forget that either. But I was just holding her. They wrapped towels around, or blankets around her, and she didn't cry. She was just looking around and was just so observant, right out of the gate. And Tania listened to her heart and was just making sure everything was good. And she was fine. She was fine. And I remember I was in the pool just for like a while longer. And then as I was holding her, I started feeling more contractions. And I was like, what the heck? I thought I was done. But it was my placenta. So I had to still birth the placenta. And those contractions felt just like the other ones, but not as intense. And I remember I started to push it out, but it wasn't coming out. And so Tania had her hand on the cord and she would pull. So when I pushed, she would pull, and then it slid out. And then as soon as it came out, that was it. Like, I just felt amazing. I can't say that enough. I felt amazing. And I was holding Indigo, and then they put the placenta into a bag and kept it in a little bowl floating next to me, so that way, because it was still connected to Indigo. We did delayed cord clamping, so we didn't cut her cord for at least 2 hours after she was born, because we wanted all of the blood we wanted to make sure all of the blood got back to Indigo, because that's so important. And so I was holding her, and then after, I don't know how long I was in there for with her, but then Tania took her and they had the placenta, and then it was time for me to get out. And so what I did was I got out of the pool and I went to the couch, but as soon as I stood up, I almost passed out. Like, I blacked out and I couldn't breathe, so I sat back down. And they got more towels and they helped me get out and practically carried me over to the couch where they had pillows and blankets set up. So I laid on the couch, and then I started breastfeeding Indigo, and she latched on correctly right away. So I know that I'm so lucky in that aspect that she latched on right away. I know a lot of moms have trouble with that, and a lot of babies, so she was ready. She started sucking right away, and I just held her. As I was laying there, her placenta was next to me. I felt alive and just myself. So I think Sal or my mom made me a sandwich, and I was having grape juice and water and just eating and hanging out and like chatting with all of the midwives and just like laughing. And Indigo was just so content, and she had so much, how do you say it, vernix? She was full. Like, she had so much. The midwives were taking it and rubbing it in on their hands and their chests, and we left it on her. We didn't give her a bath or anything. We just let it soak into her skin over the next few days. We didn't give her a bath for probably like over a week after she was born. We wanted to make sure that she got all of that soaked into her skin. And then after I was feeding her for a while, I ate, drank, then Tania did the newborn exam on her. So she laid her on the floor. She took pictures of her too, still connected, because she was still connected to her placenta at this point. She took pictures of her with the flower crown and everything, and then she did the newborn exam. Everything was great. And then at that point, that's when Sal cut the umbilical cord, and by that point, it was just like paper thin. So the scissors just went snip, and that was it. He didn't have to like cut through it. And yeah, it was so amazing watching that. And then they weighed her. We all had our guesses on how much she weighed. So what they did was they have like a piece of fabric, and they lay her in it, and that's how she's weighed. And she weighed 5 pounds and 7 ounces. So she was really tiny. And she was 18 inches long. So she was just like a little tiny thing. And then the next thing that I remember was I still had to pee. They told me, like, you have to pee. So first, Tania examined me. I was fine. No tears, nothing. I didn't have anything. And so I was totally fine on that end. And then I still couldn't get up though. I couldn't stand or anything. So they brought out the what do you call it? A bucket, and put stuff over it and had me sit on the bucket so I could pee there. And I did. And then they had me, it was probably about 12 a.m. by this point. So Indigo was about 3 hours old. And they had me crawl to my room because I wanted to go in my bed. So they made up my bed for me, and I crawled on the floor because I could not stand up, and I knew that it was my blood pressure. I've always had issues with my blood pressure being too low. So I crawled to our room, lay down, and Tania was trying to take my blood pressure, and it wouldn't register. So I can't even tell you how low it was. I have no idea, but it wouldn't register on the stethoscope or the blood pressure cuff, the manual one. She tried so many times, and there was nothing. So she hooked me up to an IV of just saline, normal saline, and she hung it from our curtain rod in our room. And I sat there while it dripped into me, and I just was with Indigo and with Sal. And once I got fluid in me like that, then my blood pressure started going up, and then she finally got it, and it was like, I don't know, 80/40 when she finally got it. And then I remember they were out here cleaning out everything, the pool, all of that. And then they bagged everything up, put it outside for us, cleaned up our house, and then they left probably about 2 or 3 in the morning. And we were in our bed with our blankets all snuggly. And the next thing I remember, I woke up, and it was the next day, probably about 6 or 7 in the morning, and I was feeding Indigo, and I was in my own bed at home, and that's pretty much it. After that, I didn't have to worry about going to a hospital or leaving a hospital, putting Indigo into a car seat. I didn't put Indigo into a car seat for a while, and it was just really relaxing. No pressure, nothing. So yeah, that's my birth story. Indigo was born at home, and let me get Indigo so you guys can see her, how she looks now. Here's Indigo. Can you say hi? Say hi. She's now she's now 1 year old. So I know I waited a long time to do this, but I just, you know, it's hard. Time flies, especially when you have a baby. So this is her. She's getting so big. Oh. Can you imagine if I would have pushed her out and she was this big? She weighs 18 pounds now, and she's still breastfed. And can you say hi, Indigo? Can you say hello? Aww. Well, thank you guys for watching, and I hope that if you like this video, you'll give it a thumbs up, and maybe even subscribe to my channel, and watch Indigo as she grows. So, and if you have any questions about this, then you can leave them in the comments below. Thank you. Bye. Can you say bye? Say bye. Bye.